Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my tutorial on uh, how to install Anaconda on macOS for one of my Python related courses. Now, I just want to say for YouTubers who are not part of my course who have found their way here, that this it's not going to have a lot of value for the general public. So you're free to listen, but I warned you. Okay, so I'm teaching uh, four Python related courses, two at each of the iSchools where I teach, UWM and University of Illinois. And at each school, I teach a version of an introductory Python course and a course on web frameworks that uses Django. So, um, if you're playing this, you're probably in one of those courses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first I'm going to show you how to use Anaconda to create a virtual environment that we can use in the introductory Python courses. Then I'm going to I'm going to invite the Django people to hang around longer, and we're going to build a virtual environment for the Django course. Okay, so that's what we're doing. Now I'm recording this now in very early fall 2019. And I'm using the latest version of macOS and the latest version of Anaconda. And I expect this to have a life of maybe a little bit more than a year. So if you're playing this in a subsequent semester or even later in the current semester, you may find that the versions of things are a little different. Okay. And generally speaking, I would say to just use the new version unless I've warned you off of that. Okay? All right, let's get started here. So we're going to bring up Safari and we're going to do a search for the download for Anaconda. So I'm just going to do an Anaconda download. Okay? And this looks like a good Anaconda site, anaconda.com. And up here along the top is the button for download. So we'll click on that. And if we come down here a bit, you'll see that it knows that we're on macOS. So it's showing the two versions of Anaconda, one for Python 3 and one for Python 2. Now we're going to take the Python 3 version because in my classes we just don't fool with a Python 2. It's at the end of its life, and I'm not a Python 2 fan, so uh, everything's going to be Python 3. So what are we going to download? Well, we're just going to click on the button for download, but I think if we do that, if we just clicked on the button, I think we get the first of these links, the 64-bit graphical installer. Okay, the alternative is to get the command line installer, which is not so user-friendly. So let's in fact just explicitly click on the 64-bit graphical installer. And if you saw that animation there, it's bringing that down to the downloads folder. And I can kind of see the download progress bar at the very bottom of my screen. And it's just about downloaded. And after it's downloaded, it's going to turn itself into a package icon. So now it's ready to go. So we're going to close the browser and open the Finder. And we'll open a new Finder window and go to the Downloads directory. And, well, it looks, we have an old copy of some MySQL data, but the thing that we really want to get at is this Anaconda 3 2019.07. And to run it, we're just going to double click on it. So we double click on it there in the Finder. And it takes a little while for it to fire up. But we should see evidence that the installer is running pretty shortly. Sometimes, oh, there it is. It popped up on another monitor. So let's bring it over here. So, okay, we're going to say continue to that part of the dialog, and then continue again, and then continue again. And it's showing us the license agreement, so continue, and then we have to agree to the license, agree, and then we're going to click on install. Okay, and it's going to install it. Now, one of the things that happens is that when it does the install, it downloads a lot of files. So rather than waiting here for the full install to happen, I'm going to pause the recording and come back when all the files have been downloaded. Okay, here we go. Here's the pause. Okay, so we're back, and all the file downloads have been done, and we've come to an advertisement for Pycharm, which we're eventually going to install because that's what we use in my Python related courses. But we're not going to do anything with that now, except to click on the continue button. And the next one is an advertisement for Anaconda Cloud, which we're not using in this course either. So we're just going to click on the close button. And do we want to move the Anaconda 3 installer to trash? Yeah, that's okay. It's a pretty big file, and we're not going to be using it again. Okay, so now we're installed. What is there to run? Well, it turns out that a lot of what Anaconda is just a bunch of Python package files. So those aren't things that we run per se. Those are packages that we include in the environment that we're building for a particular task that we're going to do. So how do we build those environments? Well, we build them with an application called Anaconda Navigator. So how do you find Anaconda Navigator? Well, you can find it in one of two places. If you look in the applications directory, you'll see that there is a shortcut to Anaconda Navigator here. So if you double click on this, it will bring it up. Okay, but what's it a shortcut to? I mean, where is Anaconda Navigator? Well, most, if not all, of the Anaconda files that we just installed are under, in this case, it's my user ID, Kevin Trainer. In your case, it's going to be under your user ID. And then go down, you want the folder called Anaconda 3. So we're just going to open that up. And we see there are a lot of different things, okay, including Anaconda Navigator. So that's where it really is. Okay, so you can run it from either place. Later on, we're going to be coming back to this Anaconda 3 directory in order to find the virtual environments that we're going to build. Okay, but not yet. Okay, so let's go back to applications. We'll use the shortcut. And we're going to highlight Anaconda Navigator, give it a double click, and it's going to fire up the app. So what can you do with Anaconda Navigator? Well, you can probably do a couple things, but what I have us do is to build virtual environments to be used with Pycharm when we're doing our programming. Okay, and these are customized to the kind of programming that we're doing. Okay, so let's see. In this tool over here, the left panel is kind of like it's almost like a menu. These are the various things that you can do. The thing that we're going to do is we're going to work with environments. So we click on that. And then we get two more panels. The panel in the middle has a list of all of the environments that we have available to us. And right now we have the base one, and we have one called Anaconda 3. And in older versions of Anaconda Navigator, that didn't actually show up. Anaconda 3 didn't. This is a new development. Okay. And over on the right-hand side is a listing of the contents of a particular environment. So if we click on base, or it's also referred to as root, this has all the Python packages that were part of the Anaconda distribution. There's quite a lot of them. Okay, more than we would use in one of my courses. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new one, and the first one is going to be for use in those introductory Python courses. So we're going to go down to the bottom of this middle panel and click on Create. And it wants to know two things. What kind of Python? Okay, and we're going to pick the latest, Python 3.7. That's what we're using in the current semester. Do we want R? No, we don't work with R in these two classes, so we're going to leave that unchecked. And it's going to want a name. And I want us to use a common name because that allows you to hand in your projects to me without having to hand in the virtual environment. As long as we're both using a virtual environment with the same name, then you hand in your project without the virtual environment, and it'll pretty easily match up with a virtual environment by the same name on my machine. Okay, so the way that I name these is I begin with E4, environment 4, and this one's going to be called trainer. My last name, Python course. Okay, and when we click on create, you're going to see it pop up in this middle panel, and then you're going to see down here on the bottom of the right panel, you're going to see the packages being put into the virtual environment. And here we go. There's quite a lot of them, but nowhere near all the packages that were in the base or root environment. And the one that we're the most interested in is Python. So here's Python, and you can see that the version is 3.7.4. And that's just what I was expecting. So that's good. What I typically say, and I may have said this earlier, in a given semester, we're typically working with, in Python, we're working with Python 3.6 or Python 3.7. In the current semester, we're working with Python 3.7. So if in fact you're watching this tomorrow, well, then when you install a Python 3.7, you'll get 3.7.4. If it gives you a later version of 3.7, like 3.7.6, for right now, we're going to say that's okay, unless I'm telling people to make adjustments in that later, then just take whatever it should give you. Okay, and that's it. We're done with this. Uh, when we install Pycharm and we create a plain old Python project, we will we'll tell Pycharm to use this environment for the project E4 Trainer Python course. Okay, so that is enough if you're taking the Intro to Python course. If you're taking the Django course, please stay around because we're going to create a virtual environment for use in the Django course, and that's a little more complex. So we go down to the bottom of the middle panel, we click on Create. And again, we're using Python 3.7. Okay, and the environment name is going to be E4, Environment 4, Trainer, Django, DJANGO, course. All right, and we're going to click on Create. And since we asked for the same things, it's going to take just about as long as the last one took. And here you can see we've got the same number of packages. The Python we have is 3.7.4. That's all great stuff. Now, from time to time, we'll get a distribution of some of the software that we're using, and it's not working the way it's supposed to. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we would normally install Django. And what you're going to see is in this version of Anaconda for macOS, when we download it and we try to tell it to install Django, it doesn't really install it for us. Which I think that means that some of the configuration is broken in this latest distribution from the Anaconda folks. But there's always a backup when things go wrong, and it'll give me an opportunity to show you that. So how would we normally do it? Well, right now we're looking at, you can see there's a drop down that says we're looking at the packages that are installed. Okay, so that includes Python, it includes SQLite, it includes pip, wheel. These are all common things in the Python package infrastructure. Okay. All right. We don't see Django. There's nothing that begins with a D at all. So how do we typically install packages that haven't automatically come in? Well, you go up to this drop down up top and you change it from installed to not installed. Now we see a list of all the packages that are not installed. That's a big list. Okay. All right. Now we can either go down and look for Django, it's alphabetic, or over here there's a search box. We can just type in DJANGO. And it looks good. It says, well, it has a package for installing Django. That looks good. And it's version 2.2.1. In the current year, we're going to be using some version of Django 2.2. We're going to be using Python 3.7 and Django 2.2. So this looks like what we're looking for. So what you would normally do is check the box to say that you want it, and come down here in the lower right and click on apply. And then it looks for, it gives you the Django package, and then it says, oh, and we have to install Python as well. And it shows you the version of that it's going to install. And typically you would click on apply and it would do some work and then it would be installed. Apparently that's broken right now. So if I click on apply, you can see down the bottom the fetching that's going on. And when it gets done, normally it comes back and there's a check mark under Django. Okay, so we have a broken configuration there. All right, so let's go back where we were. Let's take Django out of the search box. Let's go back to what's installed. And we just have all the regular stuff installed. So how could you install packages that are not available or not installing the right way using this graphical installer from Anaconda, the Anaconda Navigator? Well, it turns out that you can go here in this middle panel and you can go to the triangle that follows the name of your environment, E for Trainer Django course, and click on that. And we one of the options, the first one is Open Terminal. So, okay, Open Terminal. So what it does is it puts us in the proper directory for our virtual environment. How do we know that? Well, a couple of ways. One is it puts these parens around the name of the virtual environment that we're in. Okay, that looks good. We're in E4 Trainer Django course. And there are a lot of Anaconda command line commands that we can use. And in fact, there's a Conda cheat sheet that we can use to learn those. And you can download those from the Anaconda site. Typically, it's called the Conda cheat sheet, and you download it as the PDF. I've got one on my desktop here, and I'll just kind of bring it over so you can see what they look like. They look like that. Okay. So, for instance, what if I want to know what's installed in my current environment in the way of packages? Well, I can just type conda list. There it is right there. So that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so everything I'm going to do from here on in at the command line are all things that you can get from the cheat sheet. Typically in my class, we only work at the command line with conda when something's broken, like we are now. So let's do a conda list. Conda list, and this will show us the packages that are installed. And if we look at Python, we've got 3.7.4. That's what we wanted. Nothing for Django. We go from C to L. No Django. Okay. Now, what could we do? Well, it turns out that you can also install software at the command line. And you can do it through the Anaconda infrastructure, or you can even do it outside of the Anaconda infrastructure. It turns out that here, it looks like the Anaconda infrastructure for installing Django is not properly configured right now. So what I'm going to just use is the normal install tools. So even though we're just going to use the normal command line install tools that are not part of Anaconda, if we do that inside of a virtual environment, a Conda virtual environment, they'll become part of that virtual environment. Okay, so what do we want to do? Well, the first thing is there's an installer called a pip. And as you can see, we already have version 19.2.2. And if you're going to be doing installs with pip, you're going to want to make sure that you have the most recent copy of pip itself. So we're going to say pip install, and then we're going to give it a flag hyphen capital U for update, and we'll say pip. So we're saying to pip, update yourself. And we press return, and we see that we successfully installed 19.2.3. So there's probably not a lot of differences between those two, but the instructions for installing Django by hand are typically look like that. Okay. The next thing is that we're going to ask it to install Django. So how we do that? We do it with pip again. So we can say pip install, and if we just say Django here, we're going to get the latest version of the package. Now what we can do is we can ask for a particular version. Okay, so let's do this. Let's say that we want the latest version for Django 2.2. So if we wanted, for instance, if we wanted exactly the version 2.2.1, we would say equal 2.2.1, and that would be fine. Okay. What if we just want the latest version of 2.2 point something? Well, here's what we can do. You can say, I want the latest version 2.2. So you'd say it tilde equals 2.2. And let's see what it installs for us. Okay, so we got 2.2.4, and we got two other packages. We got a Python, and that's not surprising because that was on the list of packages that we were going to get. We also get SQL parse. Now this is a requirement for Django 2.2, but for some reason that was broken in the Anaconda installer as well. Okay, so we've had to revert to doing a command line install into our virtual environment. So let's see what we have. Conda space list. So what do we get? Well, we've got Django 2.2.4, and we do have this SQL parse 0.3.0, and that's what we want. So we've got everything that we want, okay? So we can just exit this command line window and then close it. And we now have Django installed here. Now you might say, well, I don't see it on the list, Kevin. Well, we did see it on the list when we did a conda list. So the list that you see here of what's in this virtual environment is only the list of what was installed with the graphical installer. If you want to see if there's anything further in there, you need to go back to the command line. So you would, again, you'd go click the triangle open terminal, and you could say conda list once it sets up the virtual environment. And again, we do see that we've got Django 2.2.4. It's just what we want. Okay. So a little more complicated than normal. Now I'm going to do the exit again. But it's going to do what we want when we use this environment as part of Pycharm. So I think we're going to be happy with it there. And it's good to practice this skill in any case, because from time to time, even what I consider to be a very good tool like Anaconda and Anaconda Navigator might have some configuration problems. So that's how we get around them. So what we're going to be using in our Django course, at least in the current year, the academic year 2019-2020, is we're going to be using Python 3.7 and Django 2.2 point whatever. Right now it's 2.2.4. Okay, so there we go. So now we're ready to go and install Pycharm. No matter which course you're taking, there'll be a video to play on installing Pycharm. And once we do that, we'll create our kind of project for that course, and we'll hook it up with the virtual environment that's appropriate for it, either the one for the Python course or the one for the Django course, and we'll be ready to go. So I'm going to say bye for now, and I'll see you in that next tutorial video. Bye-bye.